Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Major Michael Cortez III, and I would like to welcome you to the Baltimore County Police Department's 2024 award ceremony. Please rise for the singing of the national anthem and Pledge of Allegiance by Officer Jennifer Peach and the invocation by the Maryland State FOP Chaplain, Captain Anthony J. DeCara.
Flags at the trail, right forward. 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 Pump. Step. Face. All uniform personnel. So read and forward.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Halt. Ready. Face. Forward. Pump.
Thank you, Officer Peach, members of the Honor Guard Unit, and Captain DeCara. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Didn't do anything yet.
That's fucked up. First time.
No, you just stand for this. Heavenly Father, we come before you with a grateful heart. We acknowledge the blessings of our agency and our community that you have bestowed upon us, the community that you have created for us to live in fellowship with one another, to support, encourage, and uplift one another in times of joy and times of sorrow. Let your grace, wisdom, and mercy descend upon this gathering and be with us now and forever. Amen.
At this time, I would like to introduce our distinguished guests. Please hold your applause until the last guest has been introduced. Robert O. McCullough, Chief of the Baltimore County Police Department.
Good evening.
Mrs. Rebecca Young, Deputy Administrative Officer for Baltimore County Public Safety. Captain Anthony J. DeCara, Maryland State FOP Chaplain.
Good evening.
Colonel Dennis J. Delp, Chief of the Professional Standards Bureau. Colonel Joseph D. Conger, Chief of the Administrative and Technical Services Bureau. Colonel John J. McGann, Chief of the Criminal Investigations Bureau. Colonel Christopher M. Kelly, Chief of the Operations Bureau. Mr. Scott Schellenberger, Baltimore County State's Attorney. The Honorable Judge Julie Enzer, Clerk of the Circuit Court for Baltimore County. Corporal Ryan Massey, Second Vice President of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 4. Retired Officer Shelley Knox, President of the Blue Guardians. Retired Officer Natalie Backish, representing the Association of Baltimore County Women's Police. Retired Detective Rick Saylor, President of the Association of Baltimore County Retired Police. Mr. Gary Sorrells, representing the Baltimore County Police Assistance and Relief Fund. And seated to my right are the Exec Corps members of the Baltimore County Police Department. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished guests. At this time, I will turn the program over to the Chief of the Baltimore County Police Department, Robert O. McCullough.
Thank you, Major. Good evening to our fellow officers, honored guests, and residents of Baltimore County. Thank you for joining us for this special event. Tonight, it is our distinct honor to gather and recognize the remarkable achievements of the members of the Baltimore County Police Department who have exhibited unparalleled dedication, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to the highest standards of service. This evening is a celebration, a tribute to the selfless sacrifices made and the extraordinary efforts undertaken by these exceptional individuals. We come together to honor those whose collective endeavors have significantly contributed to making Baltimore County a safer and more secure place for all. The awards presented tonight demonstrate that when crisis occurred, the character and courage of the officers here tonight became the foundation for their response. This annual ceremony also provides us with the opportunity to publicly thank our heroes for their exceptional performance. We extend our deepest gratitude to all of the honorees for their outstanding contributions and their dedication to upholding the values that make our community stronger and safer for everyone. Tonight, we say thank you to all of our award recipients for what you have done and what you will continue to do. You truly make the Baltimore County Police Department one of the best departments in this nation. Please enjoy this program by paying close attention to what these incredible and humble people did to make the quality of life in Baltimore County better. Congratulations to all of our honorees, and thank you very much for attending this evening.
Thank you, Chief McCullough. I will now turn the program over to the Deputy Administrative Officer for Baltimore County Public Safety, Mrs. Rebecca Young.
Good evening. On behalf of County Executive Olszewski, it's an honor to be with you tonight to support and celebrate our law enforcement officers. Chief McCullough, thank you for your leadership of this incredible department. To our officers and Executive Corps members, thank you for all that you continue to do for Baltimore County. Thank you to our county council members, our partners across the region who continue to support and advocate for our officers, and a special thank you to all the family, friends, and loved ones who have joined us this evening. Our entire county is grateful for the incredible work by our law enforcement officers to keep our communities safe. Every day, we can count on our police department to keep our residents safe and to protect our communities. Public service can be difficult at times, and we cannot allow the incredible work that you do every day to go unnoticed and unrewarded. Our award winners this evening have consistently gone above and beyond to serve our county with integrity, and we are sure that they will continue to keep our communities safe every day. Tonight, we have an opportunity to present some of the most prestigious awards this department can bestow on our deserving awardees. Congratulations to all of our award winners this evening. On behalf of the county executive, it is a privilege to continue to support our Baltimore County Police Department. Your remarkable performance in the line of duty is an inspiration and serves as an example not only for your fellow officers, but for all of us. On behalf of the residents of Baltimore County, I want to thank each of you and your families for the sacrifices that you make each day. Again, congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Young. We will now begin our awards presentation. Throughout their careers, members of the Baltimore County Police Department are eligible to receive awards for extraordinary service provided to our residents. Departmental awards may also be presented to citizens who have provided courageous and selfless assistance both to our department members and others within our communities. Officers and residents are nominated for departmental awards by applications submitted to the Awards Review Board by their supervisors or coworkers. If the nominations meet specific criteria for a particular award, the Awards Review Board will approve the nomination for presentation to the officers and/or residents. The awards being presented tonight include the Purple Heart, the Commendation, the Silver Star, and the Medal of Honor. Our first presentation is for the Purple Heart. The Purple Heart is presented to an officer who, through personal sacrifice, sustained injuries while performing their police duties. Our recipient of the Purple Heart Award is Officer Philip G. Waltermeyer. On July 13, 2023, Officer Waltermeyer responded to a call for an indecent exposure at the intersection of Loch Raven Boulevard and Taylor Avenue. Upon arrival, it was clear that the subject was experiencing a mental health crisis, and all attempts to de-escalate and distract him failed. He attempted to flee several times, ignoring the officer's commands, and his demeanor quickly became hostile. He grabbed the officer's wrist, pushed his chest, and was subsequently placed in handcuffs and arrested. As Officer Waltermeyer attempted to escort the individual to his patrol vehicle, he aggressively pulled away from him, forcefully turning his body away in an attempt to flee, resulting in both the officer and the subject falling to the ground. The subject landed on Officer Waltermeyer's left leg, and a sharp, painful popping sound was heard, followed by intense pain. The injuries sustained by Officer Waltermeyer included a broken left fibula and a torn patella, both directly resulting from the subject's actions. He underwent surgery to reattach the patella and stabilize the broken bones in his ankle, which involved the use of a metal plate and screws. Officer Waltermeyer recovered at home for approximately 6 months, and although he returned to work in January of 2024, to this day, he remains working in a modified duty status. Through personal sacrifice for which serious injuries were sustained during the incident, the Purple Heart Award is presented to Officer Philip G. Waltermeyer. Our next presentation this evening is for the Commendation Award. The Commendation Award is the third highest departmental award for which any member is eligible. It is presented to an officer who displayed courage and devotion above what is normally required, displayed intelligence during unusual circumstances, demonstrated initiative in solving a crime, or under certain circumstances, arrested an armed and dangerous person. Our first recipients of the Commendation Award are Detective Michael R. Demerick and Detective Stephen M. Janowitz. During 2020, detectives from the robbery unit have been investigating a female suspect by the name of Baker who had outstanding warrants for robbery, felony theft, and violation of probation. Her crimes spanned 5 jurisdictions, including Baltimore County. Suspect Baker had been on the run for months and was known to operate a gold Honda Accord, which was used as the getaway vehicle in multiple incidents. On September 15, 2020, the investigation led detectives to a hotel in Baltimore City. After hours of surveilling the front doors of the hotel, suspect Baker emerged from the lobby, retrieved her keys from the valet, and made her way to the driver's seat of the car. Accompanying Baker was her boyfriend, suspect Williams, and as detectives converged to make the arrest, Baker entered the driver's seat and started the vehicle. Suspect Williams opened the passenger door but was ordered away and to show his hands. Suspect Williams did not comply and kept his left hand inside of his pants pocket. As he turned walking towards the lobby, suspect Baker simultaneously accelerated the vehicle, striking a police car. Afterwards, suspect Baker was placed under arrest. Detectives Demerick and Janowitz pursued suspect Williams on foot into the hotel lobby where they placed him in handcuffs. While Detective Janowitz surveyed the lobby for witnesses and secured the inside, Detective Demerick began to search the subject. He immediately felt a hard object consistent with that of a handgun in his left pants pocket area and informed the suspect he was aware of the handgun and not to reach for it. He called Detective Janowitz for assistance, who was interviewing witnesses across the room, so as a precaution, Detective Demerick requested the concierge to manually lock the exterior door to the lobby for further safety. As soon as this occurred, suspect Williams leaned his body back into the detective to intentionally throw him off balance. He began to resist and forcefully reach for his left pants pocket. Although handcuffed, his arms were long enough to reach around his back, and if he overpowered the detective, the suspect would have been able to gain control of the handgun. Fighting to gain control, Detective Demerick called for Detective Janowitz and radioed to officers outside. He managed to get the suspect to the ground just enough to gain leverage and felt that the handgun was now missing from the suspect's pants pocket. Detective Janowitz joined Detective Demerick, and together they fought with the suspect to get control of his flailing body, fearing that he may have gotten control of the firearm. Adding to the intense situation was the fact that once officers outside realized what was going on, they rushed to the lobby door to help, only to find it was locked from the inside. Despite the bustling lobby and the suspect's resistance, Detective Demerick and Janowitz successfully apprehended him, seizing a loaded firearm with 1 round in the chamber, along with a large bag of heroin capsules. Throughout the encounter, these officers demonstrated exceptional bravery, professionalism, and dedication to public safety, prioritizing the well-being of bystanders, hotel staff, and each other. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Detective Michael R. Demerick and Detective Stephen M. Janowitz. Our next recipients of the Commendation Award are Corporal James E. Hardwick, Officer Brian T. Brown, and Officer Michael C. Momigan. On September 18, 2023, first responders from multiple jurisdictions were dispatched to assist with a suicidal individual threatening to jump from an overpass on I-695. At approximately 11:07 p.m., Officer Brown located the individual clinging to the top of a retaining fence in the center of the Crosby Road Bridge over I-695. The subject was out of reach and dismissive of any help. Additional units began to respond to close off the inner and outer loops of I-695, which caused traffic to build. Officer Brown witnessed the subject climb down the backside of the retaining fence onto a narrow concrete ledge where he paced anxiously. When the subject sat down on a concrete barrier facing away from him and towards I-695, Officer Brown quickly took this opportunity to reach through the holes in the fence and grab hold of the subject's belt and T-shirt. Officer Momigan arrived on the scene and immediately engaged, reaching through the fence to secure the individual by his clothing. Corporal Hardwick and other officers quickly responded to coordinate efforts by pulling back the fencing to create more space. Corporal Hardwick managed to get his hands under the fencing and attach a handcuff to his own wrist, extending it toward the individual in hopes of securing him as an additional safety measure. Despite repeated attempts by the individual to grab and release his hand or push away the cuff before it could close around his wrist, Corporal Hardwick persisted. The officers faced numerous obstacles, including a language barrier and the individual's combative resistance, but they maintained their grip and fought through the fence, the fatigue, with only their hands for nearly 21 minutes. Their endurance and resolve held until a ladder truck arrived, allowing them to safely lower the individual to the ground. While many first responders contributed valuable support to this complex incident, the dedication and extraordinary commitment of these 3 officers were crucial in saving a life. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Corporal James E. Hardwick, Officer Brian T. Brown, and Officer Michael C. Momigan. Our next recipients of the Commendation Award are Corporal John C. Myers, Officer Anthony L. Howes, Jr., Officer Gary P. Leach, and Officer Grant A. Steffen. On September 27, 2023, officers from the Dundalk Precinct responded to a call at 1 Midway Avenue reporting a suicidal individual. The distress caller explained that her son had a loaded handgun and intended to harm himself. As officers made their way to the location, the call was abruptly disconnected and further contact could not be reestablished, intensifying concerns about the situation they were walking into. Upon arrival, officers observed the subject briefly appear at the storm door before he abruptly slammed it shut. Moments later, his elderly mother exited the house, only for him to close the door behind her, leaving her on the porch. Acting swiftly and with great care, the officers secured her immediate safety and escorted her from the porch to a nearby area. Recognizing the potential for further danger, they promptly evacuated nearby residents and business owners, establishing a secure perimeter around the area. This precaution soon proved critical as the subject, now barricaded inside, suddenly fired one round from a shotgun that struck a playground set where children were previously playing as officers arrived on scene. While awaiting the response from the tactical unit, the armed suicidal subject fired additional shotgun rounds from the residents towards 2 of the officers and their vehicles. 1 business and 1 police vehicle was struck with the rounds. With the support of the tactical unit members and additional departmental units, they were able to apprehend the suspect without anyone sustaining any injuries. The bravery and dedication of these officers played a crucial role in ensuring a peaceful resolution, safeguarding both the lives of those involved and the surrounding community. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Corporal John C. Myers, Officer Anthony L. Howes, Jr., Officer Gary P. Leach, and Officer Grant A. Steffen. Our next recipients of the Commendation Award are Sergeant Jeffrey A. Mickle, Detective Kristen S. Burrows, Detective Jennifer C. Endy, Detective Sarah J. Miller, and Detective Carl W. Walder. Beginning in November 2023, the burglary unit began investigating an ongoing countywide trend of overnight commercial burglaries impacting Baltimore County and neighboring jurisdictions. Each burglary case that was reported was subsequently added to the unit's workload as they assumed primary investigative responsibility. Throughout their investigations, they were met with unique challenges that tested their abilities. As investigations progressed, unforeseen obstacles created issues, and they had difficulty establishing a pattern of activity with locations, time of day, and days of the week because the burglaries had no rhyme or reason, making surveilling specific locations much more difficult. Nevertheless, detectives persisted, workloads significantly increased, while more cases occurred. The detectives were forced to try new, innovative methods and take additional steps outside the normal course of investigations. On March 1st, 2024, a cluster of 3 commercial burglaries occurred and detectives located the first piece of viable evidence, a video capturing a dark-colored BMW X3 at the scene of the recent burglaries. This proved crucial as they began looking back through old cases. 22 days later, a cluster of 5 burglaries occurred within 2 precincts with video surveillance capturing the same suspect vehicle. Detectives created an attempt to identify Flyer and sent it countywide on April 2nd. 2 days later, a cluster of 5 more burglaries occurred on the east side of Baltimore County. However, based on the flyer, detectives on another unrelated case observed a vehicle matching the description on the flyer, bearing temporary Virginia tags that revealed no record on file. The detectives followed this vehicle and observed 2 suspects exit and disappear. When the suspects returned to the vehicle, they removed the temporary Virginia tag to affix a Virginia permanent tag, which was registered to a female suspect with an address in Baltimore City. In the following weeks and months, detectives identified, obtained court orders, and conducted lengthy physical surveillance of the 3 suspect vehicles. Through a combination of strategic collaboration and meticulous investigative work, the unit uncovered critical links between cases. On July 6, 2020, at 1:30 a.m., detectives were alerted to one of the suspect vehicle's movements in the area of a known commercial business. The detectives immediately coordinated a response from home to physically surveil the suspect vehicle and its occupants. During the surveillance, the vehicle stopped at numerous commercial businesses around Baltimore County. The suspects would exit the vehicle and pull on numerous doors while peering through the windows. After approximately 4 hours of surveillance, their efforts paid off. The suspects stopped at a commercial business, exited their vehicle, and committed a burglary while the detectives surrounded the location. Once additional support units arrived on scene, the detectives apprehended all the suspects that were responsible for this regional trend. During the apprehension efforts, one of the suspects attempted to conceal himself within the ceiling of the business, but failed by falling out of it onto a display and eventually onto the floor. Their efforts not only curtailed the immediate impact of these crimes, but also prevented potential future incidents, thereby helping to protect businesses and restore a sense of safety within the community. Their successful efforts in resolving this complex multi-jurisdictional investigation exemplify the highest standards of law enforcement and reflect great credit upon themselves and the Baltimore County Police Department. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Sergeant Jeffrey A. Mickle, Detective Kristen S. Burrows, Detective Jennifer C. Endy, Detective Sarah J. Miller, and Detective Carl W. Walder. Our next recipients of the Commendation Award are Corporal Shane M. Blake, Officer Chase P. Iosa, Officer Franklin J. Bilberry, Officer James R. Haddix Jr., Officer Timothy B. Kent, and Officer Christopher R. Miles. On February 15, 2024, at approximately 9:17 p.m., patrol units from Precinct 11 responded to an urgent call at 57 Eiffel Court involving an armed male subject in the home with a gun. The situation transitioned to a home invasion burglary and then a male threatening to harm himself. The caller identified the suspect holding the gun as her mother's ex-boyfriend and advised if the suspect saw police, he might try to hurt them. Inside the residence, 2 female victims, a young woman 21 and a 9-year-old girl, had sought safety by locking themselves in an upstairs room, desperately awaiting rescue. At this juncture, the suspect had already pointed the gun at one of the callers and stole her cell phone. Upon arrival to the rear of the residence, officers could see the suspect holding a handgun through the first-floor window. Officers quickly assessed the high-risk situation and established a perimeter. Demonstrating exceptional bravery and quick thinking, having little to no cover, they formed a rescue team and devised a strategic plan to ensure the victim's safety. Using an extension ladder from the fire department, they swiftly and skillfully extricated both victims at different times through a second-story window, bringing them to safety while minimizing further risk. The officers returned to the perimeter positions until relieved by the tactical team, who successfully took the suspect into custody. The suspect was found to be prohibited from possessing a weapon, wanted on 2 violation of probation warrants and a domestic abuse warrant. The officers' courageous and decisive actions led to a successful resolution without injury or loss of life, underscoring their unwavering commitment to protecting the community. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Corporal Shane M. Blake, Officer Chase P. Iosa, Officer Franklin J. Bilberry, Officer James R. Haddix Jr., Officer Timothy B. Kent, and Officer Christopher R. Miles. Our final recipient of the Commendation Award is Officer Hannah M. Louise. On July 21st, 2024, Officer Louise volunteered to work overtime ahead of her scheduled shift and was assigned as a backup officer for an anonymous call regarding a wanted suspect reportedly seen in the Woodlawn area. A relatively new officer to the precinct, having graduated from the academy just 5 months prior, Officer Louise demonstrated impressive commitment from the start. She recognized the description of the suspect as one involved in a recent Baltimore City incident where a tragic shooting occurred that claimed the life of a 12-year-old child under the suspect's care just 2 days earlier. After several units conducted an initial area check, which unfortunately yielded negative results, the call was cleared. However, Officer Louise remained steadfast in her determination to locate the suspect and continued her search. She soon identified an individual matching the basic description and strategically followed him through a residential neighborhood while concealing her presence. Because of her tactical approach, the suspect remained unaware of the impending apprehension and upon his successful arrest was found in possession of the semi-automatic handgun that was used in the senseless and tragic homicide of the child from Baltimore City. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Officer Hannah M. Louise. Our next group of presentations will be receiving a Silver Star Award. the second highest award for which any member is eligible. It is awarded to an officer in recognition of service to the department and citizens of Baltimore County, wherein valor, courage, intelligence, and bravery are demonstrated above what is normally expected of an officer. Our first recipient of the Silver Star Award is Officer Derek E. Manning. On May 4th, 2022, Officer Manning responded to a domestic disturbance call in the Essex precinct. Additional remarks from dispatch advised the complainant's uncle was demanding money and actively throwing things at his mother. Upon arrival, Officer Manning and other personnel located multiple family members on the scene, one being the visibly irate suspect. The residence had a split foyer layout requiring Officer Manning to ascend a staircase toward the kitchen area to address the suspect. As he ascended the staircase, he observed the kitchen in complete disarray, as though it had been ransacked with broken items and spilled contents scattered throughout. Approximately halfway up the stairs, the suspect ordered Officer Manning to stop, declaring he was experiencing severe withdrawal, demanding his family take him to obtain more drugs, and to not come any closer. Officer Manning remained calm and controlled, attempting to engage the suspect in a dialogue to de-escalate the situation. Mindful of his position and the need to ensure the safety of the suspect's mother, who was nearby and vulnerable with several sharp objects around, Officer Manning suggested moving outside to continue their conversation. However, the suspect grew increasingly hostile, issuing direct threats and arming himself with a butcher knife, which he held to his throat while making suicidal statements. Recognizing the need for immediate medical assistance, Officer Manning persisted in his efforts to help, but the suspect refused aid. Instead, he picked up multiple edged weapons from the floor, disregarded commands to drop them, and moved towards the table where his mother was seated. Officer Manning directed her to leave the kitchen, and as she stood to exit, the suspect turned his aggression towards the officers. Wielding knives in each hand and ignoring all commands, he advanced at them at a dangerously close distance. At this life-threatening moment, Officer Manning discharged his service weapon, incapacitating the suspect. Once secure, he attempted life-saving measures, including wound care and CPR. Officer Manning acted with unwavering courage and composure in a rapidly unfolding high-pressure situation. Despite the unpredictable circumstances, he demonstrated exceptional bravery and tact, ultimately ensuring the safety of the family amidst extreme volatility. For courage, valor, and bravery demonstrated during this incident, the Silver Star Award is presented to Officer Derek E. Manning. Our next recipients of the Silver Star Award are retired Lieutenant William A. Lally, Corporal Sean D. Brennan, Officer Stella M. Brennan, and retired Canine Officer Derek W. Clark. On December 7th, 2022, at approximately 6:30 a.m., several officers had just completed a separate high-risk search warrant service with the Tactical Unit and Crisis Negotiations Team. As they were driving through the Cockeysville precinct, radio traffic indicated a homicide had just occurred in the area and that a cell phone believed to be related to a male and a female subject involved was being monitored by 911. Comments relayed by dispatch further advised there was an open line and a discussion between a male and a female could be heard referencing the recent shooting. Based on the context of the conversation heard between the male and the female, it appeared that the female in the vehicle had been kidnapped by the armed suspect following the shooting. With strong indications that the phone used to call 911 was in the possession of the shooting suspect and that the female victim with him was at serious risk, officers acted swiftly to locate and intercept the suspect. Corporal Brennan and Officer Brennan quickly proceeded to the last known cell phone location. Lieutenant Lally, in an unmarked vehicle, joined the effort, positioning himself strategically along common travel routes. Lieutenant Lally soon identified the suspect's vehicle, which remained stationary at a nearby intersection, its driver unaware of the officer's covert positioning. The team continued close surveillance from a safe distance as the suspect began driving through a neighborhood. Knowing the suspect was armed, dangerous, and accompanied by a kidnapped victim, the officers carefully coordinated a tactical approach. Canine Officer Derek Clark took a critical role, positioning his canine vehicle to block the suspect's path. He began giving commands to the suspect, providing a momentary distraction for Lieutenant Lally, Corporal Brennan, and Officer Brennan to simultaneously close in from behind and sides, sealing off any routes of escape and bringing this incident to a safe conclusion. Fully aware of the dangers involved, these officers demonstrated exceptional skill and teamwork in devising a strategic approach. Their coordinated actions allowed them to surprise, block, and contain the armed suspect, which denied him the opportunity to escape. Their swift and precise response resulted in a successful apprehension and recovery of the handgun used in the homicide, as well as the safe rescue of the kidnapped victim, all without injury to anyone involved. For courage, valor, and bravery demonstrated during this incident, the Silver Star Award is presented to retired Lieutenant William A. Lally, Corporal Sean D. Brennan, Officer Stella M. Brennan, and retired Canine Officer Derek W. Clark. Sean, grab it afterwards. Okay. Our next recipient of the Silver Star is Officer Austin A. Kiss. On September 28, 2023, Officer Kiss responded to a call for a family disturbance in the Dundalk precinct area involving a mother and her adult son. Since the call was sent as a non-priority call that did not require expedited police response, Officer Kiss was the sole officer on the scene and backup was an unknown distance away. Officer Kiss parked his patrol vehicle several houses down the street and began walking toward the address provided by dispatch when he heard screaming coming from the direction of his call for service. He activated his BWC and began to run toward the source of the disturbance. Tall shrubbery was blocking his view from the street, and upon reaching a clear line of sight, Officer Kiss could see a man on top of an elderly woman who was screaming for help. Officer Kiss took several steps towards the porch and observed the male suspect wielding an open folding knife and actively attempting to stab her. Mere steps from the suspect and his mother, Officer Kiss recognized that any delay could be fatal, so he made the critical decision to physically engage this assailant instead of another force option due to the close proximity of the victim to the assailant. The suspect's muscles were tense and he had a firm grip on the knife, but Officer Kiss grabbed his right arm with both hands to gain control, giving verbal commands to release it. The suspect ignored him, and after a brief struggle, Officer Kiss used a narrow porchway to his advantage by striking the suspect's hand against the nearby railing to try and disarm him. The knife was released from the suspect's grip, allowing Officer Kiss a momentary opportunity to gain leverage enough to restrain and cuff him until he could call for backup. These events transpired rapidly and took place on a small row home porch in the late hours of the night. Given that the mother had already been stabbed in the abdomen before his arrival, this officer's split-second actions and willingness to risk his own safety ensured the mother's survival, exemplifying remarkable courage in a life-threatening situation. For courage, valor, and bravery demonstrated during this incident, the Silver Star Award is presented to Officer Austin A. Kiss. Our next recipients of the Silver Star are Sergeant Michael R. Keller, Corporal Kimberly M. Langford, Detective Michael A. Kolsevich, Officer Michael J. Flaherty, Officer Cody E. Ordak, Officer Derek J. Sennett, Officer Matthew O. Summerlin, and Officer Robert L. Warnick II. On March 26, 2024, at approximately 1:30 a.m., Baltimore County and the state of Maryland faced a devastating tragedy as a 948-foot foreign cargo ship struck a critical support pillar of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, causing the structure to collapse onto the ship and into major waterways below. Although the ship issued a mayday call to halt civilian traffic, it wasn't clear if all had gotten off the bridge in time. However, it was confirmed that a construction crew was still on the bridge at the time of the collapse and tragically fell into the waters below. Shortly after, all nearby available marine, aviation, and underwater recovery team assets were immediately deployed for rescue and recovery efforts despite scheduled leave and work conflicts. The weather ranged between 40 to 60 degrees and the water temperatures just between 45 to 50 degrees with intense winds of up to 32 miles per hour. These water temperatures alone were cold enough to be life-threatening to a person within 30 to 60 minutes of direct exposure. Even with protective gear, these conditions pose risk of milder hypothermia to divers, particularly during prolonged dives at significant depths. As soon as sufficient assets arrived, rescue efforts began. The dive team utilized police boats to search the immediate area for survivors and signs of life. Due to the potential dangers of the unstable wreckage and mangled steel below, the divers first utilized sonar and remotely operated vehicle capabilities to narrow the search area. However, due to device limitations, the only way to obtain clear enough images was for them to be extremely close in proximity to the bridge's down steel I-beams. Officers were forced to push the bow of their boats up against the downed wreckage, thus creating a steady platform to work from. This method was essential for them to obtain clearer sonar pictures and to determine if any signs of life were present. However, the strong winds and currents would push their boats away from target areas, and the twisted steel below repeatedly caused entanglement issues for the sonar and roves, forcing the officers to adapt and try different techniques. Ultimately, despite their best efforts to rescue any victims, they were forced to regroup the following day. The next morning, with plans in place, the dive team converged on an area where a red construction pickup truck was found in approximately 25 feet of water. Visibility below the surface was 2 feet at best, but once the silt became disturbed, their visibility became zero. The truck was positioned on its roof, partially atop the bridge's roadway and partially on the river floor. Once divers were in the water, they had no choice but to feel for familiarity in the blacked-out water while being mindful of sharp rebar and other hidden dangers. Fighting currents and further entanglement issues, the divers successfully rigged chains, straps, and lift bags to the vehicle and would come to recover 2 victims. During their second dive on April 5th, even more challenges arose amongst this zero visibility dive. Due to the complexity of this operation, the divers required the use of a commercial diving hat, a 32-pound stainless steel helmet connected to the surface by a series of hoses that provides divers with an endless supply of air and keeps them tethered to a surface. This equipment is ideal for overhead hazardous environments. Navigating through contaminated, cold, murky waters of tangled steel and debris, divers confronted immense challenges, often diving as deep as 50 feet beyond the thermocline. Despite these conditions, the underwater recovery team, along with other units, displayed extraordinary bravery, skill, and resilience, working tirelessly to bring closure to this heartbreaking incident. Their courage and dedication under such dangerous circumstances exemplify the highest standards of service and bring great honor to the Baltimore County Police Department. For courage, valor, and bravery demonstrated during this incident, the Silver Star Award is presented to Sergeant Michael R. Keller, Corporal Kimberly M. Blankford, Detective Michael A. Kolsevich, Officer Michael J. Flaherty, Officer Cody E. Ordak, Officer Derek J. Sennett, Officer Matthew O. Summerlin, and Officer Robert L. Warnick II. final recipients this evening to receive the Silver Star Award are Officer Julianne B. Elmco and Officer Brian T. Schmidt. On July 15, 2024, Officers Elmco and Schmidt responded first to the scene of an urgent inland water rescue near Delaney Valley Road and Loch Raven Reservoir. The call had come in for a 9-year-old child who had slipped into the reservoir and disappeared below the surface, and the family members with the child were unable to swim. With rescue assets still en route, the officers recognized the urgency of the situation on top of the unique dangers posed by the man-made reservoir. Without hesitation disregarding their own safety, they entered the water in a courageous and selfless attempt to save the child's life. In full uniform and without any breathing or flotation equipment, they combed through the dark waters in search of the child. Holding their breath and diving to the bottom of the reservoir, they would use their feet to feel for the child before pushing back up to the surface to breathe. They continued their search, pushing against the strain of the reservoir's depths for nearly 20 minutes. Their relentless search finally led them to the child submerged 10 to 12 feet below the surface. The child was transported to an area hospital for treatment, but unfortunately succumbed to his injuries. The officers knew that the reservoir contained man-made utilities below, such as large, powerful pumps and drains that could easily pull or hold somebody through extreme suction at the bottom of the reservoir. Despite those known dangers, the physical exhaustion, and the mental strain of the rescue, the officers remained steadfast in their mission to preserve life, demonstrating unwavering commitment through actions that were nothing short of extraordinary. For courage, valor, and bravery demonstrated during this incident, the Silver Star Award is presented to Officer Julianne B. Elmco and Officer Brian T. Schmidt. Our final presentation this evening will be for the Medal of Honor and/or the Purple Heart. The Medal of Honor is the highest and most prestigious award for which any member is eligible. Ensuring its integrity is never compromised, this award is presented to an officer who, with knowledge of risk, found themselves in a life-threatening situation likely to result in their death or serious injury and intelligently committed themselves to danger. The Purple Heart is given to those who, through personal sacrifice, have been injured while performing their duties. Our first recipients to receive either the Medal of Honor and/or Purple Heart are Officer David A. Kralik, Officer Austin M. Hay, Officer Scott D. Johnson, Officer Cody J. Klapka, and Officer Nicholas R. Mabry. On June 4th, 2022, at approximately 8:30 p.m., officers of the Towson Precinct were dispatched to the apartment complex at 500 Virginia Avenue for a reported disturbance with a loud boom. The complex is 14 stories high with 150 units, and the anonymous caller advised they could hear a female yelling on the 11th floor for someone to call 911. The situation escalated rapidly upon their arrival when gunfire suddenly erupted from the floors above them. With limited information but a clear determination to protect lives, the officers quickly ascended to the 11th floor, prepared to confront an unfolding threat that had all the indicators of an active shooter. Upon reaching the 11th floor, they located a male coming from the direction of the gunshots, conducted a pat-down, and inquired where they were coming from. The male directed them to his neighbor's apartment. Taking command of the initial response, Officers Johnson, Kralik, Klapka, Mabry, and Hay stacked outside the apartment door and prepared to make contact. Upon knocking on the door, a male subject abruptly opened it and immediately fired upon the officers. As they returned fire, subduing the suspect, Officer Kralik was struck by gunfire in his right hand. Although he attempted to stay in the fight, his gun hand was severely injured and he was unable to do so. Yet he endured and pushed through. Officer Kralik then extricated himself from the apartment doorway and into the elevator lobby, where he was met by Officer Klapka. He used a bandage to wrap Officer Kralik's injured hand while ensuring his safety and security before returning to the other officers. He rejoined the officers to advance into the apartment, where they discovered a female victim in the living room suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. After clearing the room, the officers acted swiftly and began administering critical first aid to the female victim. Officer Klapka began applying seals to the chest and abdominal regions, then utilized quick clot to the victim's head. At the same time, Officer Hay applied pressure with a bandage over that area. Officer Mabry utilized his departmentally issued tourniquet on the victim's left thigh to stop the heavy bleeding. After further assessment, it was apparent to Officer Klapka that she was having significant trouble breathing, so he moved her to the recovery position, stabilizing her until paramedics arrived to transport her to shock trauma, where she underwent emergency surgery that ultimately saved her life. After speaking with multiple staff members at shock trauma, they expressed that the efforts performed by the first responders were instrumental in keeping the victim stable enough for transport to the hospital, further confirming that if it weren't for the life-saving first aid, she would not have made it through the surgery. In the face of extreme risk and uncertainty, these officers displayed exceptional bravery and a steadfast commitment to protecting the lives of others. They pushed toward the grave danger, knowingly putting themselves in a situation of unavoidable threat in the hopes of saving anyone in that apartment. These officers placed the concerns of others before themselves, and their actions are a testament to the highest ideals of police service. For courageous actions during a life-threatening incident and personal sacrifice for which serious injuries were sustained, the Medal of Honor and the Purple Heart are presented to Officer David A. Kralik.
Stay up there. Stay up there.
For courageous actions demonstrated during a life-threatening situation, the Medal of Honor is presented to Officer Austin M. Hay, Officer Scott D. Johnson, Officer Cody J. Klapka, and Officer Nicholas R. Mabry. Congratulations. Congratulations, Steve. Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations, Steve. Thank you, Chief McCullough and Mrs. Young. Before we conclude our ceremony this evening, I would like to take a moment to recognize all recipients of the Emergency Service Award. Due to the overwhelming response of nominees, we were unable to present all this year's award recipients on stage tonight. However, their heroic actions and selflessness displayed by each of these individuals certainly warrant our acknowledgement and respect. The Emergency Service Award is presented to those who, in a life-threatening situation, administered immediate and positive medical treatment or engaged in rescue efforts beyond the normal expectations of duty, all in an attempt to save a human life. Please hold your applause until all the names have been read. For initiative and dedication to service, the Emergency Service Award is awarded to Lieutenant Darren L. Calhoun, Lieutenant Joshua A. Watson, Sergeant Leonard E. Harper, Jr., Sergeant William D. McGladry, Detective Robert S. Knudsen, Jr., Detective Evan T. Vicerini, Officer Richard M. Andrews, IV, Officer Rashad A. Campbell, Officer Sean M. Daly, Officer Kelvin T. Davis, Jr., Officer Julianne B. Elmko, Officer Kevin C. Geiger, Retired Officer Brian G. Getz, Officer Jonathan T. Honeycutt, Officer Richard W. Knight, Officer Kyle S. Mallett, Officer Nicholas R. Moore, Officer Terrell D. Mordaunt, Officer Joshua A. Phipps, Officer Robert T. Rulin, Officer Eric M. Stefanski, Officer Kevin M. Thomas, Officer Timothy R. Vallis, P.O. Mason S. Rice, MSP Trooper First Class Jonathan Pezzold. Please join me in congratulating these members for their incredible actions. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my personal congratulations to all of our award recipients for their exceptional professionalism and acts of courage. I would like to thank all of the nominators who took the time to highlight the incredible achievements of their colleagues, as well as to Detective Naomi Bent and the members of the Awards Review Board who dedicate countless hours to ensuring our department members receive the recognition they truly deserve for their extraordinary contributions. I'd also like to thank Ms. Elena DeLucia from the Chief's Office for her tireless efforts in organizing and coordinating the successful ceremony. Additionally, I want to acknowledge our cadets and to Ms. Kathy Walls from the Chief's Office for volunteering their time and assistance this evening. Thank you to Dwayne Britton and Sarah Lieberman from our Forensic Photography Unit and Alex Revere from our Public Affairs section for making themselves available to document this special occasion. And finally, I would like to thank the JCC Gordon Center for the Performing Arts for their continued partnership and for graciously accommodating our ceremony this evening. I would also like to remind our award recipients and their families that photographs can be taken here on the stage immediately following the conclusion of the ceremony. And to all of our guests, cake will be served in the lobby where you first entered the building. At this time, I would like to ask Captain Anthony DeCara to please step forward to give the benediction.
Heavenly Father, as we enter into this time of Thanksgiving, let us give thanks for these officers and for their families especially, for the sacrifices and the dedication that they have shown to our agency and our community. May your peace and grace descend upon them and their families and watch over them tonight and always. We pray, amen.
Thank you, Captain DeCara. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight and for supporting our department as this reinforces our commitment to serve you and our community. Would everyone please join me with one final applause for all of our award recipients this evening. Before I conclude the awards ceremony, I just want to let everybody know that on the Awards Review Board, we get a ton of nominations. I just want everybody to know that it is a lot, and it's a lot of work for the Awards Review Board. It's a volunteer assignment to go through and navigate all of the applications. They are all just awesome nominations. I've seen a lot of them, and I must say that a lot of them are at least 4 to 5 pages long, sometimes as long as 20 pages. And unfortunately, you've seen tonight, it's highlighted just the highlights, which obviously was a lot, but those are some highlights from the nominations submitted by the supervisors or co-workers of these folks. And I could just go on for hours and hours and hours if I was to read each nomination for each one of these award recipients every evening. But I just want you to know a lot of work goes into it by the supervisors and the co-workers to write these folks up. And I'm just hitting right this evening just to keep it at a reasonable time frame. I can go on for hours, though, if I read all the nominations and everything that went into everybody's nomination. I just want everybody to know that. But that concludes our ceremony for this evening. Enjoy your evening.